Yeah, the trouble is he's focused on all these major trading partners. Meanwhile, Australia suffers along with needless tariffs. So you could sort of clear us up in about 10 minutes and then move on with that stuff. We'll see where it goes. Now, Anthony Albanese, of course, has announced the makeup of his new front bench today. One of the big casualties was Ed Husic. He spat the dummy yesterday.
We've had people in senior roles in this government that did the same thing as I did, questioned. And I don't think that's an unhealthy thing. I live my values. I think it's important to say you sometimes have to make a decision that's good for the collective. And when people look at a Deputy Prime Minister, they expect to see a statesman, not a factional assassin.
A factional assassin. Now, Ed Husic's a good bloke and he was poorly treated, but this is just the way it goes, isn't it?
A bit of frustration shining through from Ed there, but he's a talented individual, full of energy and commitment, and I believe there'll be a pathway back for Ed. But it is the system, Chris, and architecture we all go along with when things are going well and like to push back against when things are not going so well. And unfortunately, the makeup of the huge 94-person caucus has changed, and the New South Wales right had to lose a spot. I don't think if it had been the other way around, New South Wales would be playing a different game, offering to give us a spot away to their Victorian friends. So it's to be expected, and someone had to go as a consequence, and it's very sad for me that it was Ed, because I do think he has an enormous contribution to make, and I do hope he'll get the opportunity to do it again.
Yeah, it might be difficult, mightn't it, given you got over 90 seats this time round. Surely the only way that is going is down.
It's interesting. Oh, well, we'll wait and see, but that might be correct. The right wing of the party might be in structural decline, and they need to have a long, hard think about that. And if they come to that conclusion, I think they should, then they need to get active and energetic and to do something about it. The interesting thing about Ed, of course, is that in a sense, he fell victim to affirmative action, and I certainly support affirmative action and securing more women in the House of Representatives and indeed the Senate. But as a Muslim, there was no sort of affirmative action to protect him. And I think that's an obvious conflict in philosophy.
Yeah, well, we will see. Look, to me, there wasn't a lot in the shake-up today. I mean, Michelle Rowland, a big winner to become Attorney General, replacing Mark Dreyfus. But a couple of things that I thought were noteworthy. One was Tanya Plibersek being shunted sideways into social services. That doesn't sound like much fun to me. But also Chris Bowen keeping climate and energy. That's going to drive a lot of people in this country nuts. But here's what Anthony Albanese had to say about both those points today.
Do you see Tanya Plibersek having that role until we next go to the election?
I'm just announcing it today, and you're asking me, are people moving on? This is the ministry that I'm announcing today. I hope it continues for 3 years across the board.
Prime Minister, how did Tanya Plibersek take being given the social services portfolio, and did you give any consideration to shifting Chris Bowen?
She was very positive about the portfolio. And no
consideration to shifting Chris Bowen. I'd like to get your thoughts on that. But beforehand, on Tanya Plibersek, is she disgruntled? Does she just have to take her druthers? I mean, she's still a cabinet minister. That's not a bad gig.
First of all, Chris, I think that if you have won 94 seats or have a 18-seat majority in the House of Representatives, you're entitled to claim that your policy settings and promises were on track. So it's not surprising that Anthony Albanese is sticking to his agenda, and it's not surprising that largely he's keeping people in the jobs that delivered an election victory. Most of the changes have been forced with the departure of others. And look, energy policy isn't just Chris Bowen's policy, it's the government's policy. They believe it's the right policy for the country. All of your viewers, I think, know that from time to time I've had issue with the ambition of it, and I remain concerned about the ambition of it. But the government went to an election with this policy. Chris Bowen was the lead on that policy. They won an election in a landslide, so no one should be surprised to learn that it's full steam ahead on the path they were following prior to the election.
Yeah, although I think we could talk that one through in a bit more detail because when we have more time, because obviously energy is a big problem for the country and Labor failed to deliver its energy promises. And if it does more of the same, we could end up with even more problems in this term. But
very quickly, because my favourite subject, but what the government needs to do across the economy is deal with this ridiculous regulatory burden we have. I don't know whether you saw the great story about Adam Gilmore at Gilmore Space. He's finally about to put a rocket capable of launching a satellite into orbit. But the regulatory burden he's experienced has been ridiculous, getting approvals to launch, etc. And it's symbolic and typical of the regulatory burden we have throughout our economy. And we need to get some more gas out of the ground. There's this debate about how much we export and how much we keep for our domestic market. Chris, we've got enough for everyone. We just need to extract it.
Sing it, Joel. You've just solved our problems. Chris Bowen's going to resign and you're going to go back into politics and be Industry and Energy Minister. Thanks for joining us, Joel.